Kia ora, everybody. Welcome on this sunny afternoon out here to Food for Thought. As Nick said, this is a series of lectures that we've been giving throughout the week, and today's lecture is about why volunteering in schools should be so important for New Zealand. So I have 5 scenarios for you, and I want you to think about what's in common for these scenarios, okay? The house next to yours is on fire. Your neighbor has a heart attack. 2 kids are caught in a rip current. Your local school needs to hire a new principal. What was the 5th one? An alleged murderer is on trial. What's common about these 5 things? What's that?
They're all current.
They're all current?
They've just occurred in New Zealand.
Yep, so they've just happened. What else?
They're stressful.
They're very stressful. What else? They need help, right? In each instance, okay? In New Zealand, all 5 of these scenarios will be responded by volunteers, okay? So if your house is on fire, chances are you will have a volunteer firefighter. Out of the 8,000 firefighters in New Zealand, 7,000 are volunteers, right? If St. John's is coming to you or coming to your neighbor because they had a heart attack, 70% of them are volunteers, okay? If your school needs a new principal, every school in New Zealand is run by a group of volunteers, right? Our jury system entirely depends on volunteers, and our surf lifeguards are majority volunteers, right? Hugely important for New Zealand to have these volunteers perform these essential services, okay? It also makes New Zealand quite vulnerable. What happens if the next generation of students come through and they don't want to volunteer? As a country, we're stuffed, right? Because we absolutely depend on folks to volunteer, right? Now, how do we look on a world stage? Does anybody want to guess where we rank in terms of giving? Across the world, where do you think we rank? Definitely top 10, even higher. Even higher. We're number 3. We're number 3 behind the United States and Myanmar, right? We're ahead of Australia, Ireland, Canada, UK, okay? 57% of New Zealanders volunteer according to this giving index, and the giving index asks 3 questions. Have you helped a stranger? Have you donated money? Have you donated time? Okay? So we rank pretty highly, and this giving exemplifies what Sir Peter Jackson had to say about our country. Because he said our country is not a small country, it's a large village, right? So a village depends on people to help out. A village depends on people to be interdependent with each other and to pitch in and to help out in these different instances, okay? So how do we assure that the next generations of New Zealanders will do this kind of giving and donating, okay? And my thought is it's through school. So the ancient Greeks back in the 5th century BC had a saying. And their saying was, everybody is born an idiot. And the Greek word idios means you only are concerned with yourself. So everyone is born as an idiot. We just concern ourselves. And it's only through education that you become a citizen. Now for the Greeks, this was really important because they were the first people to try democracy. They were the first people to try ruling themselves. Even though it was very limited in its form, they tried to do this. So for them, education was absolutely critical. Now in Christchurch, we've had a good model for how to do this. So in the 2010 and 2011 earthquakes, okay, so after the 2010 and 2011 earthquakes, pause for technical difficulty. Okay, so no microphone. So me with my raspy voice will try to connect. So after the 2010 and 2011 earthquakes, we had over 11,000 Canterbury students go out and perform needed relief throughout the city as the Student Volunteer Army. When we saw them doing that, we said, wouldn't this be a great opportunity for them to bring that volunteering back onto campus so that their experiences out in the streets don't just fade away? So we created a class called Christchurch 101, Rebuilding Christchurch, and we gave the Student Volunteer Army members a third of the course credit for the volunteering they did. And then if they wanted to get credit for the whole course, the other 2/3 of the course were made up of academic content and reflection. So we ran the course right after the 2011 earthquakes. We had about 100 students take it. And then when we ran it again the next year, we had students who weren't in the Student Volunteer Army want to take it. So we began to offer it to them, and we do the volunteering within the course, right? And so now we go out and we do volunteer projects across the city. And students are learning about what it means to volunteer, okay? So how do we teach volunteering? How do you teach things like what's the best way to volunteer? So one of the ways we do it is we have found different ways that different cultures and societies have thought about volunteering. And I'll share with you one example.
Sorry.
So in the Jewish book of faith, which is the Torah, there's a section in it that specifically talks about how to help people. More than that, it rank orders 8 different ways to help people from best to worst. Okay? So I'm going to show you these 8 different ways to help people, but these are going to be scrambled up. And you're going to have 2 minutes to decide what's the best and what's the worst. Okay? So here they are. Yeah, that'd be great. My able assistant, Elaine. So giving for an amount that was requested, giving less than you can afford, giving without being asked, teaching someone to read, donating a can of food to the food bank, picking up rubbish as punishment, anonymously paying a student's university fees, paying for and naming a library after you. All right? So very quickly, think about what do you think is the best way on here to help somebody, and what do you think is number 8? So what's number 1 and what's number 8? Hello? So who said teaching someone to read? A few people did. Why did you say that?
Because that is something that you have for life, and that person can go on to learn more and also teach someone else to read.
Yeah, it's like another biblical parable of teaching somebody how to fish. So they eat for a lifetime instead of just eating for a day. Okay? So that is correct. In the way that the Torah describes it, it's when you hand your hand to an Israelite such that they don't need your hand anymore. So how do you empower somebody to do something that they no longer need your help, right? What does it involve to teach someone anything? What's involved? What's that? Patience, absolutely. What else? Time. Dedication. Yep. What's that? Yeah, so actually some material, right? Yep. Probably some kind of relationship with the person that you're trying to teach. It might even involve getting out of your comfort zone, like if you're going to teach somebody how to read in prison. You know, it would involve having to learn a bit about somebody else's culture and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely, that's number 1. It's also the most involved of all of these. Now the intriguing part of this list is not number 1, which you picked up on, it's number 2. What do you think number 2 might be? So the very first one is you're very involved, you're getting alongside somebody, you're teaching them something essential, all that kind of stuff. What do you think number 2 is? The library. So the bottom, so the bottom 2 are interchangeable at 3 and 4. So you're pretty close. So those 2 could be either 3 or 4. The bottom 2. What do you think number 2 is? What's that?
They can't be hungry. Be able to eat.
So the food bank, right? You're absolutely right. Okay. So think about it this way. The Torah is saying if you had these 8 options in front of you today, the very best thing you could do is to go get alongside somebody and teach them how to read, right? Second best is actually the easiest. Donate a can of food to the food bank. Why do you think that might be the second best? What's involved in donating a can of food to the food bank and that can of food getting to somebody who needs it?
They won't concentrate if they're hungry.
What's that?
They won't concentrate if they are hungry.
That's right. So feeding them is essential, right? What else do you think is going on here? And this is the whole key to this ranking system, is number 2. So basically, if I donated a can of food to the food bank today, it makes its way to somebody tonight. I meet that person on the street tomorrow. They don't know that I've given them the can of food. I don't know that they've gotten my can of food. It's very clean. There's nobody feeling bad. There's nobody feeling indebted. It's just an easy way to go, right? So the rest of them, particularly number 3 and 4, there's the retention of anonymity. So the Torah was all about how do you make the person getting the help feel dignified? How do you make them not feel bad? Okay? So those are 3 and 4. The top ones go 5, 6, and 7. So giving for an amount requested, giving less than you can afford. No, sorry, that's 5. Giving without being asked, that's 6. That's 7. And then, of course, picking up rubbish is number 8. Okay? Now, the reason we do this with students is we want them to see that there are different ways to go about helping. Okay? Some ways might be better when you consider the recipient than other ways. Okay? And I'll just finish with this very quick story about a student who did this process. So we do this in Christchurch 101. Thanks, Elaine. So we had a student who came and stayed. She was with us in 2013. She took Christchurch 101. She got very inspired by the Student Volunteer Army, and she wanted to go back to her home university in the States and start a Student Volunteer Army. So she got back in August. She went back to university in September. And in October, her hometown, 2 hours away, was absolutely decimated by a tornado. She quickly organized on her campus a Fill the Truck campaign, where she was able to get 2 tractor-trailer loads of stuff and send it to her hometown. When she wrote us and told us about it, she referenced several things: Student Volunteer Army, Christchurch 101, the Torah. Because what she did was number 2. She got the donations, sent the donations to where they were needed. The people who got them didn't need to feel obligated or feel like, they were needing help or anything like that. So they were able to get the donations pretty cleanly. So for me, these are really good examples of how we can get volunteering into our education system. Okay? Any questions? All right. Thanks very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you very much.